Welcome to another edition of Digital Dialogues by Maritime Gateway. Today we have a guest with us, Mr. Umesh Grover. Umesh Grover is a veteran in the shipping and logistics industry with almost 49 years of experience. Currently, he is the Secretary General of Container Freight Stations Association of India. He is also the advisor for All Cargo Logistics and head business development for Karanchia Terminal, a multi-purpose private minor port adjacent to JNPT. He has earlier served as CEO, Indian National Ship Owners Association, INSA, New Business Development and Information Technology. He was also chief engineer on SCI ships for 6 years with a total sailing experience of 14 years. Welcome to the show, Mr. Umesh Grover. It's a pleasure having you today.
Thank you, Mr. Ramprasad. Always a pleasure to be a part of Gateway Media, and thanks for calling me.
Let me begin by a very burning issue. Container freight stations have been facing trouble and challenges for the last 2-3 years, especially. First, it was direct port delivery, which has affected business. Then it is COVID-19 pandemic, which has brought in a host of other issues and challenges. So can you give me an insight into how is the business in container freight station and what are the key challenges that you are facing?
Thanks, Mr. Ramprasad. A very relevant question. CFSs have been facing through a challenge for almost 4-5 years now, but we have possibly overcome most of the challenges. Let's now start with the reduced volumes and with the direct port delivery, which started off from 2016. Prior to this, only newsprint and certain items were going direct port delivery, which was about 6%. And the direct port delivery within 2 years went up to 40-50%. And since CFSs are heavily dependent on imports, because 75% business is imports and 25% exports. So this hit the CFSs badly. But then with innovation and re-engineering their business plan, but the volumes were there, and with the increase in the port traffic, I think they've been able to sustain. Then came in the COVID in the month of March 2020, and CFSs being extension of the ports, the vessel-related activity takes place in the port, in the terminal, and the cargo-related activity has happened in the CFSs. So we were declared essential service under the Pandemic Act, and we were required to perform so that the ports don't get congested and the lifeline of the country, that's as the supply chain, is not impacted. So our guys, they came in for the challenge. They brought in extra labor. They got in the truckers, paid them very heavily additional, and they kept evacuating as many as 6,000 to 7,000 containers a day. And within 10, 15, 20 days, they kept the port free, and in process, they got themselves congested. A very peculiar situation happened that although the government had declared entire exempt trade, whether essential commodity or non-essential commodity, exempted from this from the lockdown, but the importers were not coming forward to take deliveries because they felt that they'll take it to the factories. The factories are closed, so they felt that keeping in CFS is safe, and they got backed by a sort of a government support, with government issuing advisories that, look, CFSs, you are good guys, but give them total waiver. So which we said that's not possible. CFSs themselves were compassionate and they gave waivers to the extent possible. But to give total waiver was just out of question, because what happens is in the CFSs, the revenue generates only when the consignee takes delivery. But your payoffs start off whenever you start evacuating from the port. You have to pay the vendors, you have to pay the truckers, you have to pay the labor, you have to pay the staff. So it was a very tight situation. And but after 2-3 months, the delivery started going. Despite waivers, etc., our CFSs realized their revenue, and they are sustaining. Now what has happened is, in the last 2-3 months, with the imports shrinking down by about 25 to 30% and exports rising, the business is hit again, and they are working on 40, 45, 50% volumes.
CFS definitely is an important link to the entire supply chain. And as it is going by what you said, the business itself is facing challenges. But why every time CFS operators are shown as bad boys in?
See, it so happens that in this country, the importers and exporters get the preference, and the service providers, like who's put in a huge infrastructure, state of the art infrastructure, having spent crores of rupees, you have a huge capex, huge opex. They are always, it is always felt that they are making money. Let's be honest, CFS has made money, but not by any dishonest means. There was the whole trade was like this, that they would take clearance in 15 days, 20 days, and our revenue was from the ground rent. Slowly and slowly, the trade got disciplined, and so did the CFSs, because we live with lesser revenues, but the volumes increased, so we have been sustaining. So CFSs somehow have been projected in bad light by the trade, though we are custom cargo service providers and we are servicing the cargo. Ports do not have this place to service the cargo. And if this doesn't happen, the exempt trade will come to a standstill. Like in the case of during the pandemic, there was 50% DPD, but not a single DPD importer came to take the deliveries. And all that cargo, the CFSs came in to support. And I think government realized the importance of CFSs at that point of time. But the memory is short-lived. Again, they will forget, and again, we'll be getting whipped again. That's what I expect. But we are used to getting whipped now. Doesn't matter.
What is the current capacity utilization of the CFSs? At least
Uh,
the members, if you have the national figures, fine. Otherwise, CFSAI members, how is the capacity utilization?
Yeah, I have the national figures too. As far as CFSAI and NSCS have combined, if you take all the major ports and the private ports, which are large container ports, CFS utilization anything between 40 to 50, or some of them 55%. Mundra is doing pretty well because Mundra is still a lot of exports happen at Mundra through the CFSs, and exports are booming. And the capacity is not, there's not oversupply in Mundra. So Mundra CFSs are working at a better capacity, but at all other places anything between 45-50%.
How is the business model in future, the way you look at it? Because once with a lot of this digitalization or streamlining all the logistic bottlenecks that are there, because CFS main business model is to get the ground rents, right? If the turnaround time is quicker, dwell time is getting lesser and lesser, what would be the future of container freight stations, and how should they look at future business model?
Very pertinent question, Mr. Ramprasad. This is one thing which has been worrying us, and we also been taking up with the government. Yes, the ground rent is a very important component. The trade gets disciplined, they move faster. Number one, in case the volumes increase, then at least you have larger volumes to handle, so revenues will come, and you will be able to sustain. But what needs to be done is that high tech infra, which has been set up at a huge cost, we have to effectively utilize it. We've been proposing to the government that this CFSs can do a lot more. We can do what a multimodal logistics park will do, or a FTWZ will do. Allow us certain activities, allow us additional activities. One important activity which we say is, like aggregation, segregation of the cargo, labeling, and sort of, barcoding. These all can be done in the CFS. Secondly, allow domestic cargo, non-exempt cargo to be handled in CFSs, though they are custom cargo service providers, custom stations, but create virtual boundaries. And you can monitor, track the movement of goods as well as persons through a virtual boundary, and you have a report. So there's a solution available which we have been proposing to the government, and we do hope that government will listen. One more thing is that especially at JNPT, with the new airport coming in and the air cargo seeing a lot of increase, these container freight stations can also serve as air freight stations, ready-made air freight stations. The customs are posted. It will bring down the cost because you set up a new facility, the customs cost, and this is ready-made facility available, and they can start from day one. So this is what we're going to propose to the government to allow our members to do that.
During COVID pandemic, everybody said the one good thing that happened is digitalization is accelerated now. everybody is looking at moving on to more digitalization. So in that aspect, where do CFSs stand?
Yes, I think the digitization during this pandemic has, I think, taught the logistics world a new lesson that you have to, going forward, this is the way, there's no other way. You see what happened in initial stages when the documents are moving by air, courier, they'll go to the bank, LCs would be open, the documents have to be negotiated. All that came to a stop. But then cargo could not be stopped because they were essential cargoes. And innovative methods came. There was the PCS 1.0x, which the trade was reluctant because of data security and data. Everybody followed line. And so did the CFSs. We started accepting e-delivery orders, e-payments, e-invoicing. And I think a lot of information which is coming now, digitization is the way to go forward. And it's been that is one of the positives which COVID has given, and that's one thing which is going to stay for years and years to come.
Logistics industry was granted infrastructure status some time ago. Does it help anyway for CFSs?
Mr. Ramprasad, we all felt this would help, and lot of investments came in with the newer CFSs when the ports were expanding. We got benefit under ATIE and IT Act. That was your tax holiday for a while. But the lenders are still not comfortable because the risk assessment. They feel that if, because the government policies keep changing, like see now the DPD came, utilization down by 50%, or your revenues are down by 50%. All the lenders who had worked on the basis of IRRs of 18 or 20 or 22% suddenly find that the CFS may not be able to service the loans. Secondly, the loans still are coming at a very high rate. They should have been ideally coming at 3-4% for a longer tenure, but that's not happened. There's some sort of assurance that these policies are going to stay and CFSs are treated as an essential part. Till then, I foresee that this will not happen. CFS infrastructure status is not helping anyway. But going forward, I think that would be our appeal to the government. Let everybody benefit, because ultimately the trade is going to benefit. If the costs come down, the end user benefits, the importer benefits, the exporter benefits.
Customs have come up with a lot of regulatory changes, and in fact, we should say that they have been rapidly changing, adopting new models, new way of doing things. But some of them, I believe, as I understand from the market feedback, that they are not working well for the trade, like this faceless assessment, which is causing some delays during clearances. So what is the ground reality? Is it because the trade is not adapted to that, or are there any unforeseen fears, or what is it?
What you're right, Mr. Ramprasad, there has been a lot of complaints, especially from the broker community and the importers, that it's taking much, much longer for the queries to be answered. The assessment is a faceless assessment. Somebody sitting in Bangalore or in Delhi is doing an assessment at JNPT. Everybody all across India are not familiar with so many products. So they do not know what is the duty, so it takes longer time. They come out with wrong sort of assessment, and it's sort of creating a problem. There are a lot of positives which have come from customs of late. Has been your Turant filing all the documents online, but I think over a period of time it should settle down. If it doesn't, perhaps they should have that faceless customs, but JNCH alone, for the JNCH at JNCH, for Chennai at Chennai. Going forward, because if these obstacles are not cleared, the trade cannot suffer. It's a good initiative by the customs. We hope it works. But if it doesn't, they'll have to review.
As Secretary General CFSAI, what is on your agenda now?
Our new agenda is, one is that we would like our members to continue performing and not become NPAs. So we have been taking up with the government, with the CBIC, with the customs, and with the logistics ministry. Number one, to allow the MMLP activities and FTWZ activities. They wanted a 200 acres land earlier for a FTWZ. What for? They brought it down to 100. But I don't think that big parcel size is required. That doesn't have a role to play. Then you have this multimodal logistics park activities, like I mentioned. Allow manufacturing if required in a small way, packing, and whatever I mentioned, about the change in business plans. We have to re-engineer the business plan, and the government has to support it. I think that's the way for the CFSs to go forward. These are all state-of-the-art infra, doing a great job, and they have a future provided the government supports you. Government also needs you. It was proved during the COVID that none of the importers, none of the DPD importers came forward. And it's only CFSs who came forward, worked day and night to evacuate and kept the logistics chain moving. So I'm proud of our members who have done all that, and good luck to all of them.
On that note, Mr. Umesh Grover, I wish you all the best in the initiatives that you are taking on behalf of CFSAI. Thank you very much for joining with us and sharing a lot of insights into CFS business. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Ramprasad. I also must say that Gateway Media has been doing a wonderful job by reaching everybody with your new initiatives of daily bulletins. You have these interviews, and the trade is really benefited. You all are doing a great job. Your containerization in India was a phenomenal show. Keep going. Thank you for inviting me, and all the best. Thank you.
Thank you.